What happened when an undercover CEO walked into his own laundromat, only to discover that his employees were mistreated, customers were ignored, and the culture had turned toxic? Welcome, brilliant listeners. You're the kind of people who value respect, decency, and doing the right thing when it's hard. This story is for you. It's about quiet strength, bold truth, and the incredible ripple effect one person's kindness can create. You're about to witness a powerful transformation, where justice doesn't arrive with a bang, but with a mop, a notebook, and a heart that refuses to stay silent. Let's dive into something unforgettable. The scent of fresh linen used to dance in the air the moment you stepped inside Harbor Fresh Laundry. It wasn't just a laundromat, it was a neighborhood landmark. Elderly couples once folded towels while sharing gossip. Kids giggled as they played hide-and-seek between machines, and the staff knew everyone's name and stain removal preferences by heart. For Clare Donovan, 28, the place carried more than nostalgia. It held memories of folding sheets beside her mother every Saturday, learning early on that clean clothes didn't just mean hygiene, they meant dignity. But those days had faded into corporate gray silence. The new touchscreen kiosks blinked coldly where the front desk once stood, and the warm posters of local events were replaced with sterile branding slogans. Claire still wore the blue apron with pride, but now it felt like armor instead of comfort. Ever since the laundry chain had been bought out, everything felt transactional. Customers came and went quickly, staff turnover was high, and anyone who valued personal connection was labeled inefficient. Still, Claire stayed. Her father's diabetes treatment was draining every cent, and this job, however soulless it had become, paid for insulin and hospital visits. She kept her head down, folded faster than anyone, and avoided the gaze of Devin Carr, the smug regional supervisor who treated the place like his runway. He strutted through the aisles barking orders, more concerned with performance metrics than the people behind the machines. Claire missed the days when she could take a minute to chat with Mrs. Klein about her grandkids or help Mr. Lopez carry his heavy laundry bag. Now there were quotas to hit and customer efficiency paths to follow. Still, Claire tried to hold on to the good. She greeted regulars with a smile, helped newer workers find their rhythm, and whispered quiet encouragement to herself when it all felt too heavy. But deep down she couldn't shake the feeling that the heart of Harbor Fresh was slipping away. What used to feel like family now felt like survival, and as Claire pushed her laundry cart down the waxed linoleum aisle that morning, she had no idea that everything she knew about this place was about to change, thanks to someone nobody saw coming. If Claire had any doubt that Harbor Fresh Laundry had lost its soul, Devin Carr erased it every time he walked in. At 35, with slick-back hair and designer shoes that had never touched a mop handle, Devin saw himself not as a manager but as an executive in waiting. He strutted through the laundromat like it was a showroom, issuing commands with the flair of a game show host and the empathy of a brick wall. Gone were the days of checking in with staff or asking how someone's weekend had been. Now, success was measured in numbers: machine usage per hour, average customer wait times, and staff productivity ratios. Devin's clipboard was never far from his side, and neither were his personal favorites, Tyler, Jenna, and Chase. Together, they operated like a clique in a high school cafeteria, laughing loudly behind the folding tables and assigning blame the moment anything went wrong. Claire, who had been working at Harbor Fresh for nearly 6 years, had never felt more like an outsider. She did her job without complaint, often picking up slack left by others, yet Devin rarely acknowledged her, unless it was to criticize the angle of her towel folds or question her efficiency score. One particular morning, Claire witnessed Devin scold a young part-time worker, Mia, in front of customers for taking too long to load a dryer. The poor girl's face turned crimson. Claire stepped in quietly afterward, showing Mia a faster way without embarrassing her. That's how Claire operated. Lead with compassion, fix things from the inside out. But that approach was a relic in Devin's eyes. He made it clear during team meetings that there were no gold stars for being nice, and we're here to turn loads, not make friends. Under his watch, the store's atmosphere shifted from mildly tense to actively toxic. Tyler often snuck away to take personal calls during peak hours. Jenna rolled her eyes at customers with broken English, and Chase once spilled detergent and blamed the cleaning staff. No consequences followed. The message was clear: loyalty to Devin meant immunity. Claire kept her head down, but her patience wore thin with each passing day. It was under these conditions, this pyramid of pretense and power games, the corporations announced they were sending a new janitor to improve site cleanliness scores. Devin scoffed at the idea. "Great," he said. "Another dinosaur with a mop. Just what we need." The others laughed. Claire didn't. She had no idea that this so-called janitor would soon become the catalyst for a reckoning none of them saw coming. He arrived without fanfare, just an old man in faded navy overalls and a ball cap pulled low over snowy white hair. Walter Granger, or simply Walt, as Devin introduced him with a mocking smirk, was supposedly the new janitor sent by corporate to improve cleanliness scores. Devin made it clear to the staff, he's not part of the team, he's just here to sweep floors, not make friends. The others barely glanced up from their phones or folding tables, but Claire noticed everything. The way Walt's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the mop handle, the way he paused a little longer when bending down, and especially the way he smiled, shy and genuine, as if grateful just to be acknowledged. His hands reminded her of her father's, weathered, slow but steady, hands that had fixed washing machines with a wrench in one hand and a story in the other. When Claire offered a polite welcome, Walt's face lit up in a way that made her heart ache. "Thank you kindly, miss," he said, voice soft and gravelly. "Nice to meet someone who still remembers their manners." Claire helped him find the supply closet and jiggled the stubborn lock that everyone else pretended didn't work. "You just have to know its mood," she joked. Walt chuckled, the sound warm and surprisingly sharp. The others, meanwhile, snickered as he passed. "Hope he doesn't break a hip on shift," Tyler muttered loud enough for Walt to hear. Claire shot him a look, but Walt didn't react. He simply kept moving, shoulders slightly hunched, head bowed. As Claire returned to her folding station, she glanced back and saw Walt cleaning the glass entrance doors with meticulous care, his reflection warped in the streaks he was trying to erase. There was a dignity in the way he moved, quiet but deliberate, as if every task mattered, and yet she could feel it in the air, the way others treated him as invisible, disposable. Claire didn't know why it bothered her so much, but it did. Maybe it was because she had seen what happened when people like Walt were ignored. Or maybe, deep down, something about this quiet man didn't quite add up. But for now, she just smiled back at him and kept folding towels, unaware that the man with quiet hands was watching far more than smudged glass. At first, Claire thought Walt was jotting down reminders, maybe cleaning tasks, supply lists, or phone numbers. She noticed it during her afternoon break when he sat alone near the back utility sink, pen in hand, scribbling into a small, worn notebook with a cracked leather cover. The way he hunched over it, shielding it slightly with his arm, made her curious. She didn't ask. Not yet. But once she began looking for it, she saw him writing more often. After a snide comment from Tyler, after Jenna accidentally knocked over his mop bucket, after Chase made a mess and laughed about it, each time Walt would silently take out the notebook, make a quick note, and slip it back into his pocket. Claire's gut told her there was more to this man than a janitor with a habit of record-keeping. Meanwhile, the pranks became crueler. Someone unplugged the washer mid-cycle just to watch Walt take the blame. Another day he was locked in the supply closet for almost an hour, emerging with a smile and a joke but limping a little more than before. And still, no complaints, no anger, just quiet observation in that ever-present notebook. One day Claire finally asked him, gently, "What are you writing in there?" Walt looked up from the cart he was organizing and tapped the book lightly. "Old habit, helps me make sense of things. You see a lot when no one thinks you're worth noticing," he smiled softly. "Sometimes I write down what people say, sometimes what they don't." Claire couldn't tell if he was joking. The words stuck with her. That afternoon, after Jenna purposely spilled detergent near a customer's cart and blamed it on Walt, Claire saw him writing again. But this time, his eyes weren't weary. They were sharp, focused, almost calculating. She felt a chill crawl down her spine. This wasn't just a man enduring mistreatment. He was documenting it, cataloging behavior. Claire didn't know who Walt really was, but something about that notebook and the way he held his silence like a shield made her think this so-called janitor was waiting for something, watching, measuring, not out of fear, but with intent. And though she didn't understand it yet, Claire knew one thing for certain. That notebook wasn't just a habit. It was a ticking clock. It happened at the peak of Friday night chaos. Machines whirred, dryers buzzed, and customers shuffled between folding tables and detergent aisles in a blur of noise and movement. Claire, exhausted but focused, was manning the register when she caught sight of Walt near the back hallway, mopping up a spill left by a leaky washer. His movements were slower than usual, his back stiff as he wrung out the mop, clearly battling pain. That's when Chase entered the scene, tray in hand, balancing cups of complimentary coffee for waiting customers. What happened next unfolded in slow motion. Chase veered just slightly, enough for Claire to notice the calculated shift in his stride. His foot extended ever so subtly, and in one devastating moment, Walt's mop caught the edge, and the old man went down hard. The tray flew, coffee arcing through the air before crashing into the tile floor beside Walt. A hush fell over the laundromat. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A child gasped. Claire froze. Walt didn't cry out. Instead, he pushed himself up slowly, hands trembling, coffee dripping down his sleeves, his knees scuffed and soaked. "I'm fine," he murmured, already reaching for his mop again, but Devin burst from the staff room like a storm cloud. "What is going on here?" he barked, eyes scanning the mess, then zeroing in on Walt. "How many times are we going to clean up after you?" Chase immediately played innocent. "And stepped in to me? I didn't see him." His voice trembled just enough to pass for sincere. "I think he slipped." Claire felt something inside her snap. The fatigue, the silence, the slow-burning disgust, it all ignited. She stepped forward, voice clear and unwavering. "That's a lie," she said firmly. "Chase tripped him. I saw it." Gasps rippled through the room. Devin's face turned crimson. "Excuse me?" Claire didn't flinch. "And this isn't the first time. He's been harassed and mocked for weeks. And you let it happen." Other staff members looked away. A few customers began filming. Devin hissed. "You're out of line." Claire met his stare. "No, I've just finally stepped into it." Devin's voice rose, venomous. "You're fired. Pack up and get out." Claire untied her apron slowly, folded it and laid it on the counter. "I'd rather be unemployed than complicit." She turned to Walt, gently helping him to his feet. "Come on, sir. You don't deserve this." As she helped him gather his things, Claire had no idea her fire had lit a fuse, and the explosion was coming. The next morning, Devin Carr swaggered into Harbor Fresh Laundry with a smug spring in his step. With Claire gone, he could finally streamline operations his way. No more moral grandstanding, just numbers, control, and loyalty from those who knew better than to question him. But his confidence faltered the moment he stepped into the break room and found Mia, wide-eyed and pale, standing beside the office door. "They're here," she whispered. "From corporate." Devin frowned. "What do you mean they're here?" Before she could explain, the door swung open and 3 sharply dressed executives turned to face him. 2 he recognized from upper management. The third man, seated calmly in Devin's chair with a leather-bound notebook open in front of him, looked like a stranger, until he spoke. "Mr. Carr," the older man said with quiet authority. "Nice of you to join us." The voice was unmistakable. Walt. Except this wasn't the slow-moving janitor they all ignored. This was Walter Granger, founder and majority shareholder of the Harbor Fresh laundry chain. He was clean-shaven now, his posture straight, dressed in a tailored gray suit that made him look every bit the executive he had always been. The room seemed to shrink. Devin's throat tightened. I don't understand," he stammered. "You will," Walter replied, gesturing toward the notebook. "I spent the last 3 weeks working undercover, evaluating this branch from the inside. As you said yourself, no one pays attention to a janitor." One of the executives turned a laptop around, playing silent footage. Devin berating staff, Jenna tripping Walt, Chase laughing as he unplugged dryers, the coffee spill, and finally, Claire's defiant stand. The evidence was damning and extensive. Walter folded his hands. "You've created a toxic environment built on fear, favoritism, and disrespect. I built this company from a single storefront with 1 washer and a promise that everyone, from our customers to our cleaning crew, deserves respect." He stood. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately, and you're not the only one." Outside the office, a stunned silence spread as staff watched Devin, Chase, Jenna, and Tyler being escorted out, boxes in hand. Claire's absence lingered in the air until Walter opened the door again and called into the hallway. "Miss Donovan, if you're available, I'd like to speak with you." Clare, having been discreetly invited back that morning, stepped forward, heart pounding. Walt smiled. "Not as a janitor, but as a man ready to pass the torch. We have some things to discuss." Clare sat across from Walter Granger in the newly cleared office, still unsure if any of this was real. The same man she'd seen scrubbing floors and nursing sore knees now sat with quiet command behind the desk, speaking with warmth but unmistakable authority. "I owe you more than an apology," Walter began. "I owe you an explanation and an opportunity." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside, a formal manager-in-training offer, complete with salary, benefits, and a full healthcare plan that included dependent coverage. Claire's hand trembled as she realized what that meant. Her father's treatments would finally be covered. But before she could speak, Walter pulled out a small envelope. "This is from your father," he said gently. "I stopped by yesterday." Claire's breath caught in her throat. She opened it carefully, revealing a handwritten note in familiar, unsteady script. "Claire, you've always had the heart of a leader. I couldn't be prouder. You saw worth in someone the world ignored. Now the world is seeing your worth too. Love, Dad." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't help you to get anything," she said softly. "I just couldn't stand by." Walter nodded. "Exactly. And that's why I chose you." He smiled. "This company was built on folded towels and second chances, but lately it's lost its soul. People like Devin saw numbers. You saw people. That's the kind of leader we need again." Claire looked down at the contract, her name printed at the top, like it had been waiting for her all along. "I don't know if I'm ready." Walter's voice was steady. "Then you're more ready than you think." He stood and extended his hand. "You showed up every day when it was hard. You helped a stranger when no one was watching. You believed dignity was worth defending. That's legacy, Claire. And it's yours now, if you want it." She took his hand, the weight of fear giving way to something steadier. Hope. As she signed the paper, Claire felt something shift, not just for herself, but for the future of Harbor Fresh. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was surviving a job. She felt like she was becoming part of something that mattered. It started with small changes. The return of potted plants by the front windows, handwritten thank you notes from customers pinned to a corkboard near the folding tables, and the faint hum of music that replaced the sterile silence. Harbor Fresh Laundry was slowly finding its soul again. Under Clare Donovan's leadership, the laundromat transformed from a place of tension and fear to one of comfort and community. The touchscreen kiosks were still there, but now staff were encouraged to personally assist elderly or confused customers. Claire reinstated the break room's old community calendar, inviting staff to share birthdays, milestones, and even local events. A new weekly staff huddle replaced Devin's stiff clipboard meetings, and laughter, genuine laughter, echoed from behind the machines again. Even the regulars began to return. Mrs. Klein brought cookies one afternoon. Mr. Lopez started tipping the staff in oranges from his backyard tree. There was a warmth in the air, something intangible yet undeniable. Claire made it a point to mentor the younger employees personally, especially Noah, the eager 17-year-old working his first job. One night, as the team prepared to close, she noticed him rushing through his cleaning duties, missing corners and leaving streaks on the dryers. "Noah," she said kindly, "what's our motto?" He paused, sheepish. "Thoroughness over speed." Claire smiled. "Exactly. Details matter. Every job deserves our best effort, even the ones no one notices." He nodded, adjusting his rag, and went back to redo his work with care. Claire watched him for a moment, heart swelling with pride. That was the culture she was building now. Not fear-driven perfectionism, but pride in honest work. At the far end of the laundromat, a man in worn overalls entered quietly through the back door. His white hair peeked from under a cap, and he carried a simple toolbox. Claire noticed him, but gave no sign of recognition. It was Walter Granger, back from visiting other locations. Their secret system was simple. He would speak first if he wanted to be acknowledged. That night he simply nodded, moving silently toward the broken folding table in the corner. Claire returned to her staff meeting, her voice calm and confident. Harbor Fresh wasn't just clean again. It was whole. and the people inside it were starting to believe that even in a place full of machines, humanity could still take the lead. The hum of the last dryer echoed softly through Harbor Fresh Laundry as the evening settled into quiet. The machines, once symbols of routine and exhaustion, now felt like sentinels of a place reborn. Clare Donovan stood near the front counter, watching the final load spin, a mother's towels, a child's soccer jersey, and a single crisp white shirt. Beside her, Walter Granger leaned slightly on the mop he still carried out of habit more than needed. Funny thing about spin cycles, he mused, his voice gentle but knowing. They don't just clean, they shake things loose, make space for something better. Clare smiled. She knew he wasn't just talking about laundry. Over the past few weeks, Walter had traveled from branch to branch, quietly observing, mentoring, and uncovering the truth behind fading customer scores. Some locations were salvageable, others weren't. But here, in this little corner of the city, a laundromat had become a symbol of what Harbor Fresh stood for at its best. Walter placed a small plaque on the wall by the staff bulletin board, Harbor Values Award, Clare Donovan, for extraordinary integrity in extraordinary circumstances. Clare flushed with quiet pride but didn't dwell. "What's next?" she asked. Walter's eyes twinkled. "You tell me, you've built something worth repeating." He handed her a folder, inside a proposal for her to oversee regional leadership training. "You've proven that leading with heart works. Now we need others to see it too." They walked toward the exit, shutting off lights one by one, when a young couple approached the door, peering in through the glass. "Sorry," the man called. "We just moved in. Didn't realize you closed at 10. We've got a load we really need to get done." Walter looked at Clare, the same spark in his eye as the day he'd first handed her a mop. "What do you think, manager?" Clare grinned. "We'll fire up one more machine." As she unlocked the door, Walter whispered, "The legacy continues." Across the street, a figure stood beneath a lamppost, watching. Older, clipboard in hand, wearing a mechanic's uniform. Just another janitor to the unknowing eye. But Clare knew better. The loyalty test had a new guardian, and at Harbor Fresh, the last spin cycle of the night marked not an ending, but a beginning. The story of Harbor Fresh Laundry teaches a timeless lesson. True leadership is rooted in humility, respect, and quiet courage. It reminds us that the worth of a person is never defined by their job title, age, or appearance, but by their character when no one is watching. Clare Donovan's empathy in the face of cruelty not only changed the trajectory of her own life, but reignited the very soul of a company that had lost its way. Meanwhile, Walter Granger's undercover journey reveals that observing in silence can expose the deepest truths. By pretending to be invisible, he discovered who truly lived the values the brand once stood for. The story challenges us to reflect. Do we uplift or overlook? Do we lead with fear or with kindness? When Clare stood up for someone she thought had nothing to offer her, she demonstrated that integrity isn't about recognition. It's about doing what's right, even when it costs you something. And in the end, that quiet courage proved to be the most powerful legacy of all. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest changes begin with the smallest acts of humanity, and that real power listens before it speaks.